Apple just did something nobody saw coming. They teamed up with Google and Nvidia to build the most advanced AI model on the planet. And here's the part that's genuinely shocking. These three companies have been publicly battling each other in AI for the last 5 years. Apple's Siri fights Gemini, Nvidia's GPUs power OpenAI's servers. Google's trying to own the entire AI stack. Yet yesterday, they announced they are pooling their resources on something bigger than any of them could do alone. Think of it like 3 rival restaurants suddenly announcing they're opening a shared kitchen to bake the most sophisticated bread in the world. The competition doesn't end, it just gets weird. This partnership signals something massive about where AI is actually heading, and it's not what the headlines are telling you. The deal dropped on the 8th of June, 2026, and within hours, every analyst on the planet was asking the same question. What does Apple know that we don't? They've been oddly quiet about AI for years. They wouldn't build Siri into a partnership with Google unless this was genuinely transformational. We are talking about a collaboration that could reshape how AI models are trained, deployed, and who actually controls the technology that billions of people use every single day. This isn't just business news. It's the moment the entire AI industry admitted it needs to work together to stay competitive. To understand why this partnership is such a shock, you need to know the war that led to it. 5 years ago, these three companies went all in on artificial intelligence, and they chose completely different strategies. Apple decided AI should live on your device, inside your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac. That meant they needed custom chips designed specifically for AI tasks, not just general computing. Nvidia, the chip giant that already dominated data centers with their graphics processors, suddenly became the most valuable company in the world because everyone running large AI models needed their hardware. Google, meanwhile, built Gemini, their answer to ChatGPT, and they've been trying to convince the world that Google's cloud is the only place sophisticated AI should actually run. These three philosophies were fundamentally incompatible. Apple wanted privacy first. On-device AI, Nvidia wanted to sell you the most powerful processors money could buy. Google wanted to lock you into their cloud ecosystem. For years, they competed fiercely. Apple refused to use Nvidia chips. Nvidia courted Microsoft and OpenAI instead. Google tried to crush both of them with superior models and free cloud computing credits. But somewhere around mid-2025, something changed. The models got so complex, so resource-intensive, that no single company could build what they needed alone. Apple realized they couldn't match Google's scale. Google couldn't build chips like Nvidia could. Nvidia couldn't deploy a consumer-facing product. So instead of continuing to fight, they decided to merge their strengths into a single moonshot project. Here's where it gets interesting. The model they are building isn't just bigger, it's architecturally different from anything that exists right now. Think of AI models like a human brain. Current models are good at thinking in one direction. You ask a question, they generate an answer. But human intelligence is more like a conversation, where you can jump between topics, revise your thinking, and pull from vast experience simultaneously. What Apple, Google, and Nvidia are building is a model that can do that kind of fluid, multi-directional reasoning. The technical term is a reasoning-forward architecture, which means instead of just predicting the next word in a sequence, the model can actually work backwards and forwards through a problem space, like how you'd solve a complex math problem by trying different approaches until one sticks. Nvidia's contribution is the chip infrastructure, custom processors optimized for this new kind of computation, not just traditional matrix multiplication that older AI chips do. Google contributes the training scale and their massive data pipelines. Apple contributes something less obvious but equally critical, the ability to run this on edge devices, meaning parts of the model can live on your iPhone rather than always needing to talk to a data center. This is genuinely novel. No existing model works this way at scale. The partnership announcement mentioned they are targeting a deployment window of early 2027, which means the engineering is already happening behind the scenes. This isn't vaporware, it's already being built. The 20,000 engineers across these three companies are working in parallel streams right now, which is why this announcement feels so different from the typical partnership press release. So what does this actually mean for you? Let's get concrete. Right now, when you ask Siri a complex question, it hits the cloud, processes on Google's infrastructure, and sends back an answer, sometimes slowly, sometimes inaccurately. With this new model, Siri could understand context way beyond what it does today. Imagine you're in a meeting, and you quietly ask your iPhone to add that thing we talked about last Tuesday to the project list. A smarter Siri would understand meeting context, remember Tuesday's conversation because it's on your device, and actually know what that thing refers to. It wouldn't have to go to the cloud. It wouldn't have to ask you to repeat yourself. On the Google side, Gemini could become genuinely useful for professional work instead of just answering trivia. You could give it your entire email history, your documents, your projects, and it could run deep reasoning across all of it without sending your private data to a server farm. For Nvidia customers, data centers, and AI researchers, this means a new category of hardware optimized specifically for reasoning workloads, which could unlock AI applications we haven't even imagined yet. The model they are describing could run on multiple devices at once, your phone, your laptop, and cloud infrastructure all thinking in parallel on the same problem. That's never been done before at consumer scale. The competitive angle is equally fascinating. This single model could replace 3 separate AI ecosystems. If it works, you won't need ChatGPT or Claude or any standalone AI tool. It'll be baked into your operating system. Here's what the industry is panicking about right now. OpenAI, the company that started the entire AI revolution with ChatGPT, suddenly looks vulnerable. They've been charging for API access and subscriptions because they don't have the distribution that Apple, Google, and Nvidia have. But if Apple ships this model standard on iOS 19, bundled free with every iPhone sold, millions of people will have access to a competitive AI model without ever opening a web browser. That's a distribution moat that OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta can't match. They'll be forced to compete on a product they don't control on platforms they don't own. Microsoft's similarly positioned. They've been betting everything on Copilot, building it into Windows, Office, and GitHub. But if Apple's model runs directly on your Mac with zero latency and zero cloud dependency, why would you pay for a cloud-based competitor? The open-source community represented by companies like Stability AI and individual researchers is even more exposed. A closed-loop model that only Apple, Google, and Nvidia can improve has a growth advantage against publicly available models that anyone can fork and iterate on. Now, there's also the regulatory angle. The United States Justice Department, the European Commission, and regulators globally are all investigating AI consolidation. This partnership arguably makes the problem worse. Instead of 3 companies competing, they're now operating as a quasi-cartel on what could be the most valuable technology of the decade. Some analysts argue this could trigger antitrust scrutiny faster than any individual acquisition ever could. But here's what changes everything. This partnership reveals something most people haven't thought about yet. Whoever controls the underlying AI model controls the future of computing. Right now, that power is distributed. OpenAI has ChatGPT, Google has Gemini, Meta has Llama, China has various models. But if Apple, Google, and Nvidia successfully build a single, reasoning-capable model that's faster and smarter than anything else, they essentially control the AI infrastructure of the planet. Every app developer will need to integrate it. Every business will be forced to adopt it or fall behind competitors who use it. Every government will have to negotiate with these 3 companies for access to state-of-the-art AI capabilities. That's immense power. On the privacy side, there's something genuinely positive here. Apple's always positioned itself as the privacy-first company. So this model running partly on-device rather than exclusively in the cloud is a win for users who care about data protection. But it also means Apple can inspect what you're doing locally. Google, historically the data collection company, will have incentive to minimize what gets sent to their servers, which is a major change in their business model. The tension between these companies' different privacy philosophies could either drive genuine innovation in privacy-preserving AI or create a situation where each company claims to protect privacy while still monetizing your data in ways you don't see. There's also the intellectual property angle. Whose innovation is this, and who owns the patents? If one company later leaves the partnership, do they keep their contributions? Can they build competing products? The legal structure of this deal will determine whether it becomes a genuine three-way collaboration or a situation where one partner eventually dominates the others. The partnership has a clear roadmap, and understanding it matters because delays or missteps will reshape everything. Phase 1, happening right now through the rest of 2026, is pure infrastructure build. The three companies are optimizing the model architecture, building custom training chips, and creating the software layer that lets this work across Apple devices, Google services, and Nvidia hardware. That's roughly 6 months of intense engineering. Phase 2, starting in early 2027, is limited deployment. This will likely roll out to a few million users in beta across iOS, Android, and Google Cloud to test real-world performance and catch bugs before the full release. Phase 3, which everyone's expecting mid to late 2027, is the consumer launch where it actually ships to devices and becomes available through APIs that developers can build on top of. Now, the risks are substantial. If the model doesn't deliver on the reasoning capabilities they are claiming, this entire partnership could unravel and blame game ensues. Each company would spin the failure as someone else's fault. There's also the geopolitical element. Building the world's most advanced AI model means it'll likely be scrutinized by governments in the United States, the European Union, China, and elsewhere. Export controls, data residency laws, and regulatory delays could push the timeline back significantly. Then there's the technical risk of distributed training. Coordinating the training of a massive model across 3 different companies' infrastructure has never been done at this scale, and the engineering challenges are immense. One major integration failure could set the whole project back by a year. That's why the 2027 timeline feels optimistic to many analysts, but if they hit it, the impact will be instant and transformative across every industry that depends on AI. Here's what you should actually do with this information. First, understand that this partnership is real and it's happening fast. This isn't hype, this is engineering in motion. If you work in AI, software development, or any tech field, start thinking now about how your skills and products fit into a world where Apple, Google, and Nvidia control the foundational model layer. If you're an investor, this is a clear signal that generative AI's era of fragmentation is ending, consolidation is happening, and companies on the outside of that consolidation are losing value. If you're a regular user, the takeaway is simpler. The AI tools you use next year will almost certainly run on top of this model, whether you know it or not. That means smarter features, faster responses, and more privacy on your device, but also less choice in which AI companies compete for your attention. The broader lesson is that AI isn't becoming more decentralized and open source like some optimists predicted. It's becoming more consolidated and controlled by major corporations. That's not necessarily evil, but it's a power dynamic that matters. Watch for news in the coming months about regulatory responses to this partnership, about early deployment details, and about how other companies like OpenAI and Microsoft react. The next announcement will likely be someone else's counter-partnership or a major innovation leap to stay competitive. Follow for daily AI news to stay ahead of this story as it develops, because this partnership just reset the entire competition for who builds the future of AI. We'll be covering every development as it breaks.